Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Have you ever wondered what it takes to be a tour guide in Paris? Well, today we talk to April in Paris Tours. She designed amazing tours that will show you neighborhoods you never experienced and the ones you know as well. We talk about the creativity in designing tours and much more. So welcome to the show, April.
Hey, bonjour, Crystal. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's so lovely to finally chat with you. I've known about you for a long time. I've met you a couple times photographing your tours years ago. But it's so finally good to tell your story.
Yes, well, it's quite the honor to be here. So merci beaucoup.
Oh, of course. So talk a little bit about what brought you to Paris and where you're from.
So I am Canadian. My hometown is just next to Niagara Falls in Ontario. And, I always say one beautiful part of the world to another. And it was actually my noni, my grandparents on my mom's side, that kind of instilled like my wanderlust at a very young age. So they moved to Canada in the 50s, in search of new opportunities. But for my noni, it was really important that their children and then us, the grandchildren, were really connected with our heritage. And so for my first birthday, my nona and my mom brought me to Italy, and we spent it in Venice. And I guess we can say that I have been going strong ever since. And so, just at that young age, I started to learn Italian and discover the world. And being Canadian, growing up, it was a mandatory part of like the curriculum to study French. So when I was 9 years old, I started to study French, and it was really quite amazing, for my young brain at the time to realize that, French and Italian had so many of the same rules when it came to language and verb conjugation and masculine, feminine, etc. And so at a very young age, I decided I was going to be a translator. And so I continued all of my studies through modern languages, like through high school and then in university. And my degree is in French and Italian. In my third year of university, I came to France, and I lived here for my very first time in the south of France in a town called Perpignan. And like that year was such a great year for personal and like educational development. And that's when I completely fell head over heels with all things French. But never did I imagine like back then that I would move here permanently, to France and start my life and have this business. And anyway, I ended up going back to Canada after that year abroad, but I just could not get enough. So I finished my degree. I came traveling through Europe. I worked in Greece for a summer. And then I settled back home in Niagara. And, after a few years, something was missing, like my tick that made me excited for like everyday life and exploring. So I eventually gave up that homely life back in Ontario, and I decided to move to Australia. And so,
oh my gosh, all over the world.
Yeah. Like I said, that wanderlust, and I loved Australia. It was a wonderful experience, but I lost all my French that I had spent all these years fine tuning. And so after a couple years down under, I decided, it was time to come back to France. I had visions of like cafes and croissants and haute couture like floating through my head. And so I decided to come back to Paris this time to brush up on my French, and those visions of that little girl becoming a translator. I thought it was time to achieve that goal. And when I arrived back to France, I realized my French was very rusty. And in order to, proceed with like the education, I wanted to enroll in the Sorbonne. I really needed to brush up on my language skills. So in the meantime, I started working in tourism here in Paris, which was like the perfect job for me back then because I mean even now today still but being a world traveler and coming from the Niagara region in Canada, I worked in tourism for many years, and so I started working with a tour company, and I just spent every day dedicated to exploring everything that Paris has to offer: the cute cobblestone streets, the grand boulevards, the monuments, the history, the food. And after a year of working with this other company, I was turning 30, and I said to myself, maybe it's time to do something a bit more soul-filling. And I launched April in Paris Tours. So voila, those dreams of translating, kind of went out the window because I found my true passion of introducing Paris to visitors from all around the globe.
I love that. You were all over the place. And why Paris and not Italy?
Oh, well, because I did live in Italy. This is so silly. I lived in Italy 20 years ago. So the year that I came abroad, I spent 4 months in Italy, and then I was 10 months in the south of France in Perpignan. And in the few months I was in Italy, I packed on the pounds, 30 pounds in 3 months. So, I was a bit traumatized about all the carbs. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can find another place that's not Italy, because I was afraid that I was going to become a little roly-poly again.
I mean, it's easy to become a roly-poly in Paris too, but we do have more meat and vegetable choices here, I suppose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, elevators don't really exist here. I mean, they do in some places, but the apartment where I live now, and in a few weeks will be 12 years that I've lived in Paris, is the first time I've had an apartment with an elevator. So besides walking the streets of Paris all day, every day, it's getting all those extra steps with all the stairs. I've always lived on the top floor.
Oh gosh, you really do get your steps in.
I sure do.
Wow. So was there a specific moment where you were like, I want to help others experience the city in a specific way?
Well, it was just during that first year, working with the other tour company, and I just fell so deeply in love with Paris, and just watching the magic of all those folks like come alive in their eyes as we were touring around by bike back then, and I just thought it was so special to be able to have this effect on like thousands of people coming from around the world. So that's something that really set this career path apart.
Definitely. And once you start doing it, you're like, oh, I actually really enjoy this. I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have a gift of gab as well. So, it was, it seemed like the correct choice for me.
And what makes a great tour guide, in your opinion, beyond just knowing the facts?
Well, of course, you have to be personable, and you have to also be able to kind of like roll with the punches, because things don't always go as planned. So being able to change an itinerary at the drop of a hat, and just being warm and welcoming. I feel like everybody who's coming to Paris on holiday is here for a good time, and so as long as you can just bring your energy and your enthusiasm and your patience as well, because it's not necessarily an easy task making sure people aren't getting run over by bicycles, but those are some of the great qualities of a tour guide, and you have to be creative in the everyday as well, just kind of learning what really interests the different groups. And so, just yeah, having to have that kind of like creative aspect as well.
Definitely. I feel like I'm constantly protecting my clients from bikes too as a photographer. I'm like, please don't get run over.
Absolutely.
These bikes are aggressive people. Watch
Yeah,
out.
the
They will
bikes and
not
the
stop for you.
motorbikes. Oh, yeah. I've had a few close calls myself, but
Yeah, yikes. And your emotional IQ must be through the roof because you're dealing with people, you're kind of feeling them out. Like, what are they interested in? What are they falling asleep to what I'm saying right now? What do the kids want?
yeah.
Like you got to constantly change for each
Well,
client.
every day is a new adventure, that's for sure.
So, how do you design a tour? What's your creative process from idea to lived experience?
Well, um, basically, like when I first started, I decided, the classic tours to see the Grand Monuments, see Versailles. But as more and more people ask for like personalized tours. Basically, my handy dandy notebook, I am like old school. I write everything down with a pen and paper, whether it's tour itinerary planning or even research. So when I am, um, you know, brainstorming new ideas, I always write these ideas down in my with pen in the paper, and then I go out and I explore and I take notes, and it really just helps new information and new ideas, new kind of like destinations and interests really stick in my mind. And then once I have my notebook full of these new ideas, I come home and I do the research. And so yeah, I'm not very tech friendly, to be honest. And so my handy dandy notebook and paper really come in handy during my like my creativity. So
Yeah, definitely. They say like writing is more helpful for our brain to process and things like that than typing or things like that. So it's good that you're actually still using your pen and paper.
yeah, I
So
don't think I'll ever veer away from it, no matter how much technology advances.
yeah, definitely. And Paris is layered with centuries of history. How do you decide which stories deserve to be told?
Well, usually I will gather a group of my friends or other colleagues or tour guides, and I will bring them on a test run. So really where their eyes kind of like perk up or there's more questions to be asked, then I know I've hit the nail on the head. Is that the correct
Yeah,
phrase,
yeah.
And so, yeah, just by having a couple fun little tour trial runs and just seeing really what interests the folks that I'm kind of like experimenting with.
And are there any monuments or neighborhoods that completely changed for you once you learned their deeper stories?
Oh, sure. I mean, I do offer an off the beaten path tour that kind of doesn't really attract tourists, kind of like near Place de la République and through arts and métiers. And so, in like the Saint Denis neighborhood, like in Paris in the second arrondissement, and just being able to kind of dig deep in these neighborhoods where the general tourist population doesn't really set out to explore. It was really quite fascinating to see really what can be found there by these hidden gems, the hidden monuments, and like the hidden history too.
So, where's your favorite place to explore in Paris?
Oh, well, I'm a huge foodie, so I'm going to have to say around the Halls district. Yeah, near Châtelet in the center of the city. That neighborhood has literally been feeding the mouths of the locals for centuries, and there's so much history over in the district. It's made up the first and second arrondissements, so like kind of like two of the oldest neighborhoods in Paris, veering away from like the central historic islands. And so there's so many layers of history to be discovered, especially when it
Definitely.
comes to food.
Yeah, yeah, like it was the old food
Yeah.
markets. Now it's a mall. So
I
funny.
know, I know. Yeah, I stay away from the mall and kind of like to explore more around the Monterey area. Yeah, it's very fascinating for me. A few of the shops over there even have old black and white photos of what the marketplace used to look like. And so, yeah, it's really neat to see how it's really changed and evolved over the centuries.
Do you have any favorite historical stories you want to share with us
Oh, about the Halls district, you mean? Or
about Paris in general? One of your favorite historical stories?
oh, well, my favorite monument of Paris is the Eiffel Tower, of course. Like, I will never get tired of seeing the Eiffel Tower, and even after all of these years, but just the history about the tower, how it was supposed to be a temporary fixture in the city for the World's Fair. And, you can't ever imagine Paris without its soul, the Eiffel Tower, being at the heart of the city.
Definitely. I still get excited when I see it sparkle. Like it's like I see it every day for photo shoots, but I still get excited about the sparkle every
Yeah,
day.
I know. It really captures the essence of the city of light, right? When it sparkles at nighttime, especially.
Definitely. It's really special.
Uh-huh.
And what do visitors often misunderstand about French culture before arriving? And what do you want them to learn by the end of your tours?
Well, some tourists have an idea that the French are not very warm and welcoming, and this is portrayed in TV series and movies like Emily in Paris, for example. By the way, she stole my name because I'm April in Paris. I've been doing this for over a decade. But I mean, just even in like the first season when she arrives in Paris and everyone in the office is kind of rude to her and not very helpful. And this is not the case. The French, the Parisians are actually very warm and welcoming people. You just have to be sure to, learn the few key words like bonjour. I've been living here over a decade. And as soon as the locals hear my accent, everybody thinks I'm American since I don't have a Quebecois accent. And they will switch to English, but the locals appreciate even this like attempt to know a couple key words, and they'll embrace you with open arms.
Yeah, definitely. Just learning a couple words. Like even that bonjour is so important when you enter a bus or a store or anywhere. It just changes their whole attitude.
Absolutely. I even say bonjour to the security guards in the shops and the museums as well. So when I first meet my groups, I do go over some keywords that they must know. And I encourage them to use these new words, even while we're out touring. If we pop into a boulangerie, for example, I always give them the spotlight and let them practice their new words. And, most of the time, everybody's very kind and patient.
Yeah, definitely. They appreciate you trying. And describe your perfect day in Paris. If you're not guiding people around, you're just enjoying Paris, what would that day look like?
Well, that would definitely start with a cafe on a terrace, maybe with a nice warm buttery croissant as well. And then one of my favorite activities and my favorite words, this is a key word that I always teach people to, is flâner. So I really enjoy just wandering about the city and taking in the beauty, and if something interests me, maybe there's a new window display in a boutique, and just to kind of go around exploring, and at a whim, if something captures my eyes, to just veer towards that and continue to explore the most beautiful city in the world.
Definitely. Just running around. I mean, there's still things that I haven't seen that I notice randomly. Like even if I walk that street 100 times, it's like, oh, I didn't notice that marble
Oh,
building. Like,
absolutely. It's the fine details of Paris that make it so exceptional. And, doing what we do, working with, a lot of tourists, like sometimes they might notice a detail on a street that I've walked thousands of times and pointed out. And, that's what keeps me falling in love with Paris more and more every day, because there's always something new and exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. It's like you just keep your eyes open. There's going to be something beautiful you haven't seen before. And I think it's one of the few cities in the world we can say that about. It's just such a special
It
place.
is
It's so
so
pretty.
special. It's the most beautiful city in the world. Absolutely.
So, if someone only had one day to truly feel Paris, not just check boxes, what would you want them to experience?
Just that, just to kind of flâner and kind of veer off the usual Paris tourist track. I think it's really a great way to see how a city kind of thrives by immersing yourself in like the culture, by like going to a marketplace, and seeing how the locals kind of spend a morning and how they interact with one another, how they choose their food, what they eat, the flowers they choose, and just seeing like the presentation of a market, because it's just, for me, it's a masterpiece in itself. So, I would say definitely start with a market and then have a little flâner through the streets, and just take a day to relax and just soak up the charm of the city, not being in a big rush to get anywhere.
Yeah, slowing down is something we're not the best at.
We're definitely not. I've learned over the years how to take it down a notch. I remember when I first moved here, and that first summer, it was kind of a rotating door of guests coming to visit. And I would plan every single moment of every single day. And since then, I've learned like people may want to stop and smell the roses, like that chair on the terrace is kind of inviting me to come and sit down, watch the people go by, or popping into a gallery if some beautiful portrait is hanging in the window. So just to, you got to just take it easy, not plan too much, and, just kind of discover and see, veer towards what might interest you, might make you a little bit more excited.
Yeah, definitely. See what lights you up and just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what has entrepreneurship in France taught you about patience, trust, and creativity? I know a lot of people don't know it can be kind of a little different running a business here versus Canada or the States.
Well, one thing that I found that anybody who has moved to France can attest to is the French really love bureaucracy and paperwork. And so you definitely have to be patient when it comes to dealing with paperasse, one of my favorite French words, the paperwork. But I feel very lucky and very blessed. I count my blessings every day to have met so many wonderful people along the way who have graciously lent a helping hand to be able to, help along the way as well. So, yeah, you have to definitely be patient, but you definitely can't be afraid to ask for help when it comes to trying times of starting a business and moving forward with the bureaucracy that surrounds it.
And were there any moments when you doubted yourself, and what helped you to keep going as a business owner, as someone starting a business in a foreign country?
Well, just from the get-go, the job where I worked before I launched April in Paris Tours, that was a great job, and it kept a warm roof over my head at night, a warm meal in my stomach in the evenings as well. And there is so much competition in the tourism world here in Paris, of course. And day one, of my new entrepreneurial life, I sat at my laptop at a blank screen thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? Can you actually do this? And so the doubts right off the get-go were a little daunting because, I had the knowledge of Paris and knew the history, the monuments, but I really had no idea what it took to run a successful tourism business. And, that's when the magic really happened. Like friends and creatives from my entire life, from all corners of the world, kind of reached out and said, "Oh, April, I specialize in web design. Let me help you make your website. I specialize in graphic design. Do you need a logo? Oh, well, I specialize in social media. Let me give you some tips." And so, all the forces came together, all of these creative minds who wanted to reach out and lend a helping hand. So forever, I am grateful for these people. Yeah. And
Yeah,
with the help of them,
it takes a
I
village.
managed to get everything up and going. And here I am in July in 2025, I celebrated 10 years of April in Paris tours.
Well, congratulations. That's
Yay! Thank you.
fantastic. And yeah, it definitely takes a village to run a company.
Absolutely,
Like,
absolutely. And with every single day, working in the industry, you meet so many new people. Like for example, you and I met, through the tourism business, and you came along on some of the tours and photographs. So I'm so happy and blessed for all the connections that I have made, including you over the years.
oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that's something really special about the expats in Paris is like a lot of us know each other. A lot of us are overlapping and helping and working together in many ways. So it's really a special thing for such a big city to actually also know so many small business
Yeah.
owners.
Well,
Like we all
we
get it.
say, don't we, that Paris is a village, isn't it?
It really is. It definitely is. And what excites you most about the future of April in Paris tours?
In 2025, I expanded to Bordeaux. In March, I launched April in Paris, The Great Escape. So that is a 3-day itinerary in Bordeaux. So I'm really excited to see where the next year brings me. Will there be an April in Brittany? Will there be an April in the Côte d'Azur? So I have many ideas floating around my head, and I'm just very excited to see which path I decide to go down.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations. More travel, more places in France. So much to see
yeah,
here.
it's very exciting, just starting off with little old me running this tiny little tour operation in Paris. I've now expanded not only to Bordeaux, but Champagne, Versailles, Chablis. So who knows where the wind will take us next?
And how have you changed since you started this journey?
Oh, well, I have surely had to learn a lot of more patience. I'm a Leo, so that doesn't normally come naturally to me. um, and just to continuously be creative and come up with new ideas and new concepts. I have a lot of return guests, and so every day I have to put on that creative thinking cap, see what the guests would want in the future. So just always constantly having to evolve as a tour operator and a businesswoman. So yeah.
Yeah, constant evolution for sure.
Yeah.
And how would you define creativity in your own words?
Well, creativity for me, is, I guess we can say like the ability to take an idea and turn it into something real. So whether that's going out and about in the streets with my paper and pen and, just turning this into a whole new experience, or in my particular case, a new tour for, people to really enjoy. Yeah, I mean, the
Definitely.
possibilities really are endless. So just
Yeah,
to
there's
bring all
so much.
those ideas and possibilities to life, really.
And if Paris could give one lesson to the world, what do you think it would be?
Continue to sparkle and shine.
Like the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, yes,
Well,
definitely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
Thank you, Crystal. It's been a real pleasure being able to chat with you, and congrats on the podcast. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you really soon.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.